I don't think Mimi knows that she's on mute.
Oh, you're on mute.
Oh no, that whole thing I just read on mute. So good morning
Great job,
again.
though.
Good morning.
Very articulate.
Oh, you're on mute.
It's July 1st, 2020, and this is a meeting of the Southborough Master Plan Committee. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Southborough Master Plan Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at https://www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so by following manner: by finding the meeting on the Southborough's website, https://www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event we are unable to do so, despite the best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So it's 7:42. Call to order. We have a quorum. Roll call for the quorum. Luttrell here. Montclair.
Here.
McKee.
Here.
Gina, you're going to have to help me with your last name.
Lazimitsky. Here.
Lazimitsky. Watson.
Here.
Braccio.
Here.
Stivers.
Here.
Okay, so at the planning board's June 22nd meeting, we changed the charge of the master plan committee and removed a couple seats. So we now have 13 members in a quorum of 7. So we have hit our quorum for the day. And the first item on our agenda is to review the visioning statement. And I will try again to share that. Okay, and I have the comments I received, I have added in. And I guess the best way to do this is to just walk through it. The first thing I did was remove Michael Robbins because he has never participated and doesn't respond to email, so I took him off the list of members. Anything else on that first page for anybody?
Hey, Mimi,
You might do the same thing for Ralph.
Oh,
Sorry.
You can add me.
That's what I was just going to say. The same thing, add Gina.
oh, okay.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Should this have the 13 people that you just mentioned with a quorum of 7 now?
Mimi, don't you have to leave all of these members that were on even before the quorum change because there were votes taken?
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Okay.
And
Can you, so I've been thinking about this for people who have never really participated in the master plan committee. They've just maybe shown up once and that was it. Is there a way to highlight a core group of people that have actually helped on the report and then list the whole committee to distinguish between, you know, active versus, and it's not to punish or penalize, but it's actually to reflect who who put in the hours to help with the plan? Is there a way to distinguish those people?
I'm not sure I would distinguish that necessarily. It seems to me that anybody who was at least moderately active ought to be on the list. And maybe later we can have a sort of separate group to do the final push to get the thing done or something like that. Maybe two groups, initial group and final group or something. Those aren't the right terms, but that might be a useful way to think about it. I don't know.
I agree, Sam.
Yeah, I like that idea, Sam, because we could leave it as the South Bend Master Plan Committee, and then just at some point say, report subgroup or something like that. Or
Right. And anybody who's showed up for at least one meeting, in my view, ought to be on the overall list and then go from there.
Agreed.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. This is Will Warren. I'm assuming you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to be taking the place of Matt Probst from the Municipal Technology Committee.
Okay, well, so Will, we're walking through the visioning document. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. It's on the Google Drive.
No, I haven't, not yet.
Okay. So we're just going to be walking through that, and then if you have any comments or edits, just feel free to jump in.
Okay, thank you.
Anything on the table of contents? I think they did a great job with that.
I like their style.
actually, sorry, Mimi,
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering if it's worth, before we get into the detail, having a quick go around everyone to get their overall impression, because that might help us with kind of context, and we might decide we don't want to, that there's certain levels of detail that we may not want to get into at this point.
Oh, okay. Sure.
I mean, I'm happy to start if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was disappointed, but not surprised, based on previous deliverables from the MAPC at the quality of this report. I mean, from my perspective, what they've done is taken each of the smaller deliverables output that we've worked on as a committee and their own kind of vision forum materials, and cut and paste them into a document. There's no narrative really from my perspective. There's no kind of thread that you can follow it through to say, okay, I understand where you started from and how you got to where you got to. So particularly disappointed with the objectives and goals, because we had a conversation, Mimi and I and Karina and Sarah had a conversation with Ralph about the fact that there needed to be some, if you like, normalizing of those goals, because some of them were at different levels, and we recognized that there was some great work around starting to move to strategy, but that needed to be kind of separated out, plus MAPC adding their own perspective, and none of that has happened. So that's that's where I stand. So interested in others' perspectives.
Amy, if I may, follow up on that.
Certainly. Go ahead, Lisa.
So I agree with you, Judith. It was not what I expected. I think my biggest concern was on some of the data. I don't know, and we'll get to that when we get to certain parts of the document. I question where some of the data came from and how updated it actually was.
Mm,
Yeah, I recommended it be cited in my comments, so.
mm. I think, Judith, you put it, I was trying to think about it. You said it. So at my company, we outsource a lot of tasks to different parts of the world and stuff. And if they don't, and sometimes their deliverables is such cold, canned, and just doesn't have the context. The narrative is never there. And I think you hit the nail on the head right there, because the narrative doesn't fit anything. It seems like this was just, if this was done by Dell Technologies, it would have been outsourced to, you know, the other side of the world, and it would have came back of something that I just have to do myself, change it all around. So the narrative, how it comes out, just seems stale, like you said, and I didn't really look into some of the data points, Lisa, but I now going to reread it with that, you know, with the facts and stuff, I guess, the findings, the recommendation.
And Tom, as we go through it, I'll highlight a couple of the things that I wasn't quite sure. It just didn't seem correct to me. Some of the numbers and some of even the employers listed. So.
I think I glossed over some of those, but now we'll reread it with that lens on.
And Lisa, I would second that too, and that I think that I agree with what Judith says. Disappointing, but not surprising. I think we sort of have the skeleton here, and they put together, you know, all the pieces that we need. But as people are suggesting, no narrative. A number of the things in here they say really aren't quite accurate. But it's something that I think we actually can fix, and it's you know, certainly not anywhere near a final product, but at least it gives us a bit of a leg up on the process. And I think then we've got an opportunity to go through in more detail and confirm the data and add the narrative and hang the pieces together better. And I think do a better job of wrapping it up in terms of, you know, here are the things that we see are critical in terms of implementation going forward. So, you know, not useless, but needs a lot of work. But I think it's fixable with an effort to have people who are close to the real data and what's going on in town be able to actually make it work.
Are there any particular points of data in there that are particularly outrageous, or is everything just maybe a little bit off?
For me, Gina, like, and again, Mimi, I don't know if you want to wait or you want to just kind of jump in on some information.
Sure.
Mimi, I'll leave. Okay, so for instance, on page 11,
Yep.
it talked about 10 or more units being 1.5%.
Yep.
And my question was, is that based on current data on 2020? Because Madison Place is 180 units.
Gotcha.
And if you do the math based on the 3975 that it lists,
Yeah.
as ownership, that's 4.5%.
Right. Okay. So they're just, okay. I gotcha. I just wanted some context as far as what, you know, we were talking about as far as discrepancy of data and what the actual disparity was. So that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to tag on there that when I read it, it seemed that there was a lot about the 2008 master plan, but it didn't tell our story. It didn't
Right.
tell, you know, where we are and where we want to go in the next 10 years. And that's what the visioning document is supposed to do. It's supposed to be the leap off for the master plan and what Southborough's story is and what our goals are for the future. So I didn't see any of that in there, and I thought it was heavily reliant on the 2008 master plan.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, Mimi.
Which Ralph also did, I should mention. So he must have a fondness for that.
Or at least he knew about that, which the MMPC guys didn't spend a lot of time around Southborough this time around. So they wrote what they knew, which was the 2008 plan. Not surprising.
Yeah, I felt that was really confusing. I mean, especially just because I'm extremely new to this committee. When I was reading the document, it very much read like almost like a rehash of 2008. It wasn't necessarily a super updated, like where we're going, what we're doing, kind of thing. I was honestly confused when I was reading. I'm like, am I reading the right thing? Am I understanding this correctly? But thank you for confirming. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and Ralph actually himself wrote most of the 2008 plan, as a matter of fact. So he's intimately familiar with that one. So not surprising he fell back on what he knows.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, maybe a little bit of an update to the 2008 plan, kind of to say, this is, these are the things that were accomplished since then, may make sense as kind of an intro, but it should be very abridged, it shouldn't be a total rehash of what was going on in 2008, especially in like listing, all of the goals, of which there are many. There's just no reason to kind of reiterate all of that material.
I agree.
I think this plan should hyperlink to the 2008 plan on the website so that there can be, and I would suggest that for every plan we reference in the master plan, that it links to the town website. So folks who are looking at it in a PDF can easily,
I think that's
swap back and forth. Yeah.
That's a
And
great idea.
I also don't think that we should ever say what we did not accomplish. I am 100% for transparency, but I'd like to focus on, and I think Bonnie Faneff said this the best, was we focus on what we did accomplish if we say anything about it at all. But I don't think we have to highlight everything we did not accomplish.
No.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think Ralph included in there. There was like a little matrix. If you remember, probably a year ago, we did some analysis that just to kind of re-baseline everything to understand what had been worked on, what hadn't. But that was very much, from my perspective, an internal kind of piece of information for us to then say, okay, now, where do we go from here? I wouldn't have expected to have it in the report, particularly that, the one liner that says, oh yeah, there's follow-up required, for the follow-up items. I mean, that's just, you just don't put that sort of comment in a report.
Yeah.
It makes it look like you don't know what you're doing.
Although it is pretty accurate.
Well, some of the things some of the goals mentioned that were still relevant have already been accomplished. Like you mentioned, the public safety facility. And then later in the report mentioned that we built it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, I'm pretty sure there's a big giant building there that very much says we got this part of it done and doesn't need to be included here.
Yeah.
That was also another particularly confusing factor for me, but thank you for addressing it.
There's a big giant debt there, certainly. I don't know about the building.
That too. Focusing on positives though.
Is the 2008 master plan on the Google Drive? Just for,
I was able to find it. I believe it is.
Should be.
is it in the supporting documents, meeting prep?
It's probably like way back at the beginning when all the documents were dumped in there.
Yeah, okay, I'll go. I can go to the town website too. I just figured.
So Judith, it looks like we're all on the same page.
It's in meeting prep, Tom.
That's good. Okay, great. I thought we probably would be.
What's it called, Kate? Cat.
2008 master plan.
I feel I can't see that.
Catchy title.
I don't have. All right, let me just figure it out. I'm in there and I can't see it, but that's fine. That's just.
So should we continue to walk through?
Yes, I think it's still good to walk through.
Okay.
Bless you, Sarah, if you sneezed.
Thank you. I did.
Bless you.
My
So a
allergy.
letter from the master plan committee, we can work on that some other time. So the vision, this is what I was talking about, was pretty much all about the 2008 master plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I would.
Yeah,
think-
this should be, I don't know, if it remains or parts of it remain, it should be like a intro section. You know, it shouldn't start as the vision, because even that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah.
When I was reading this, I thought when there's a section that talks about what a master plan is, I found that really helpful for framing and would maybe recommend that go closer to the beginning if that section's kept in here that describes what a visioning, what a master plan is.
Yep.
It's a great introduction.
Yeah. I think we need a very condensed version of this whole multi-page discussion on 2008's document.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of, this is where we were, this was the last time we did it, and here's where we are now.
Yeah.
Hey, Mimi,
Yeah,
this is Sam. I sort of look at this, if I'm writing, I spent a lot of years as a consultant and doing projects and writing reports and so forth. And one of the things that I always found useful was actually the old, tell them what you're going to say and then tell them what you said kind of thing. It seems to me that leading off with some sort of a summary of, here's the bottom line on this thing. Here's where we want to go for people who want to spend a brief moment of time looking at it, maybe sort of an executive summary kind of thing
That's great.
to start it. And then launch into some of these other things. I agree that the 2008 ought to be very condensed and get to the meat of what we're trying to do here as quickly as possible. But having an initial summary seems to me to be a useful thing. And maybe that's part of the letter from the Master Plan Committee that's left blank here. I don't know. But somewhere up front early, say, here's what's really going on here. And if people want to spend 5 minutes, here's what you want to read.
Yeah, I like it.
Me too.
yeah. I think the letter would be a good place to do that right at the beginning.
Yep. That's what I was thinking. But sometimes those letters are, we want to, thank everybody under the sun for helping, blah, 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 kind of thing. So, which is, we ought to do certainly, but.
Well, I mean, that can be on the acknowledgements page.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a different way to do that rather than weaving it into something that might actually be important for people to read.
Yeah.
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 So this is when they go through all the goals. I don't know if you can see these comments.
Yeah, we can see. Yeah, we can see them. Mimi.
Oh, okay. Just I can't see. Yeah, so some of these, like updating the zoning bylaw, that still is a painful episode for many people. I don't think we ever discussed rewriting the zoning bylaw. And certainly
specifically
we
are we trying to
continue to add to it.
I said, what specifically are we trying to change about zoning bylaws?
So this was a goal from the 2008 master plan
Yep.
to rewrite the whole bylaw. And there
Okay.
was a committee formed and they spent a couple of years and it just blew up.
5 years, Mimi.
5 years.
Five. Sam
I remember it
was
well.
on said committee.
Oh my goodness. Are we trying to
It's
get
tough.
more residential space? Are we trying to, rezone some things or like I'm sorry, I know I'm new and I don't want to make this meeting like crazy long and ask a bunch of questions on every single point. But this seems like something that has been taking up quite some people's time.
So it was a soup to nuts rewrite of the whole bylaw.
Yep.
And I think the problem was that there was an inability to communicate what the changes were from our current bylaw to the new bylaw.
Sure.
So people were very wary of it, and it caused a lot of stress in town. So it never even made it to town meeting. But we continue to update, certain sections and add certain things, and, bylaws are currently being worked on now.
Makes sense. Okay.
It,
So
yeah, it was
it-
last done 1984 and patchwork since then. So a lot of inconsistency, confusion. There were some needs to allow for more flexibility in housing, for example,
Sure.
and a variety of other things, just sort of modern language for the thing. A lot of court decisions that had affected things over the last prior 30 years or so.
Okay.
So again, it was very difficult to work with for developers, for permitting boards, et cetera. Just needed a fresh look. And unfortunately, they tried to do too much. And there were things that certain groups of people objected to. And in total, lots of people objected to it. As trying to do it in one fell swoop as opposed to piece by piece. So it was unfortunately not very successful.
I understand. Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
So
Hey, Sam, this is Will Warren. I was just wondering, what you just said sounded like a really good lesson learned. Do we capture the lessons learned in trying to implement the 2008 master plan?
Well, we did actually go have a couple of sessions, Will, where we went through a significant amount of detail in the 2008 plan. We had smaller groups that came back with feedback, but the focus was much more around the status of the implementation recommendations as opposed to the goals, because that was where we could actually measure. There were 107 recommendations in the plan, and that's where we could actually measure what had been achieved and what hadn't. And as part of that process, we did talk about things that prevented us from implementing some of those recommendations. That's all in the minutes and in some of the documentation that's in the shared folder. But I think, just what we were talking about, I think we need to find a way to kind of pull out some of the bigger messages, lessons learned, if you like, what's been achieved, but in a summarized fashion, so that we don't confuse people by focusing too much on, well, this is what 2008 was, because
so to that point, Judith, to that point is, what do we want to have in this section? Do we want to have just the topic areas listed and not list the individual objectives, or what do we want to have in here as it references the 2008 plan?
I agree, Kat. I think where some of these objectives are still going to be current going into the new plan, I think I'd rather have them listed there than to list something from the old. Again, going on your point about Bonnie, that's what this seems like. It's repetitive. I think this, again, should be very condensed. I don't think we need to list what all the goals were in 2008 versus now. I think we should be focusing on now and the positive of moving forward and what we could do.
Yeah, 100%. I think that we should really make sure that we're separating the two. I think that these two things, the 2008 versus what's happening now, are going to get conflated by a lot of people who read this document as it is currently constituted. I think that we should be very, very brief about what happened in 2008 and then just really move on to what we see the future as, and make sure that we are very, very much separating the two.
Oh, absolutely.
So do we need this section, or should we just?
I don't really
Get rid
think
of
it's
this.
necessary.
No.
I think we should have a small section that talks about the 2008 plan and its current status. And I quite like Will's reference to lessons learned, but I think that if people want to go through the detail, everything that we've worked on, all of the analysis that we did is all in the shared drive. People can go in and look at it if they want to. We could make a reference to that.
Mm.
I was gonna say, would it be appropriate to really kind of use, what we're gonna do with the 2008 document and just say, these are the things that we accomplished and keep it very broad and high level. And then say, if you want more detail, we can like put this right in the document. If you would like more detail, all of these things are a matter of public record, put in a link as to, where they can find the more specific data on whatever topic they're interested in, and then just move on from there. I don't think there's a need to completely rehash the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Me too.
This is negative.
Yeah.
Okay. So we
No,
don't
I
need
think
to-
I agree. I think a condensed, whatever is going to support the overall narrative of the new master plan is really the only thing that you need to, write in from the old master plan. So if you're writing in, obviously the accomplishments are a good thing to highlight. Anything that was a challenge that has continued to be worked on, moving forward, that's, a lessons learned kind of thing. Would be good too, but any information that doesn't support the new narrative and the new document as a whole definitely should just be left out and made a point of reference to the old document.
Right. I also just think it's going to be a little like when you're reading something, it almost reads as if it's like, why are you telling me this? Like if it didn't get accomplished, it doesn't make any sense. Like there's no context here. It's like, oh, and just by the way, like we didn't get all these things accomplished. It's like, we don't care. Just, tell us what we're doing from here on out to, further our agenda.
Agreed.
So question, does that mean all reference on page 8, the summary of related plans, all of that will go away? It's referencing the open space rec plan, the sidewalk plan, the housing plan from 2015, those types of things. Will all of that go away?
I think
Production plan is a new one now.
Right.
Yeah, I think that some of that might make sense to keep in. Maybe not to the length that it's currently in there, but I think it does make sense to talk about the related plans that have come out since 2008 and to give a kind of summary, and to Tom's point, to talk about the 2015 HPP doesn't really make sense now that we have the new one out, so that we should just reference the new one.
Right.
But again, I think to a more abridged version rather than, several pages of it.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's a good place for hyperlinks too.
Right, exactly.
All right, so we don't need to walk through all the previous goals.
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, and some of these figures were questioned by the Open Space Commission.
And can I ask a question about this section actually, Mimi? So that paragraph, the second paragraph, it starts with 2009-2019 open space rec plan. So the second paragraph, the last sentence, it refers to however, no parcels identified as priorities in 2009 plan were protected. Even though there weren't any perhaps protected that had been identified, would this be a place to, we acquired the Halloran property, I think, in 2018 or in that time frame, would that be something to be listed here as an accomplishment?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that was one of the comments from the Open Space.
Yes,
Commission.
it
Yeah.
was.
Okay.
Golf course
Halloran
also.
in the golf course,
Mhm.
yeah. And the housing production plan's a 2020 plan,
Mm-hmm.
not a 2015.
Well, we can reference that a 2015 plan was done and is updated in 2020 because both of those things have happened since 2008, making it look like a lot has happened in a positive way.
So the slant is any plans, reports, et cetera, has been updated since 2008 should be referenced here with the latest. Is that what we want to do?
And I think that that's sort of what he was going for. However, he did say that this is a summary of select related plans. So I think that, I don't know if that was intentional in terms of wanting to just highlight of some
Or
of
an
that,
out.
yeah. So, or an out, but there's definitely the way that it's written is interesting.
Yeah, because I think there were a few that were missed, like the EDC had that Urban Institute plan.
Oh, yeah, that's really a good point.
Right. So there are, I think, a few things that may have been missed that could be included if we are going to do kind of a more comprehensive summary of the high level stuff that's been done since 2008.
And I recommend that we include everything that was done, even if it's a small mention, because
Yeah.
this is the one place everything would be a central repository for a list of this is everything.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Mimi, I'd suggest that as we've talked in the committee, a glaring hole in this whole thing for 2008 is the schools. Given that they're 70% of our budget, they have a strategic plan. They've done several strategic plans since 2008. So at least some mention of what they're doing in terms of planning, I think would be a very important thing to include here.
Yeah, great point, Sam.
So on this next page, 10, where it says Southborough Today, so this is where we start to highlight some data, and you guys have brought in the question about where did this data come from. I think all data should be cited so that we know the source and the time frame that it was.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
And the other issue that I have on this page, and I know that we've already kind of talked about, is that there's no narrative context, so like these are 3 images, and they're nice images, but it doesn't give any context as to why we're talking about this and what kind of impact that has on the community as a whole,
Yeah.
in terms of these data points.
Mm-hmm.
So anything else on data? Do we want to walk through?
No,
Oh,
like I said, reference the point.
Go ahead, Tom.
I was going to say from 2017 to 2020, we lost population in the population trend.
Did we?
Yeah, look at population trend. Go up your screen a little bit. You can see it.
Oh, no. Now where did I go?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, it went down.
We're on page 10.
We lost 21 people.
Yeah, you can see it right there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Good catch, Tom.
So as you move forward with some of the graphs, I think they're too small. I can't read them with my reading glasses. So I think wherever there's a graph, I know it might make the report bigger, but it needs to be at least legible. And I would also recommend in some cases where there's a map or something where someone might really want to get in, if you needed to save space, then I would recommend you hyperlink the map to a large 1-page PDF so that people can call that out. And I would volunteer to help make those links in the future if it's time consuming, but I think it makes for really, it's more usable for folks that want to deal with them.
I agree. I also think that since we're talking about maps, the land use map that's depicted here on page 14, the color scheme that has been used is really awkward. The open space, around kind of the reservoir and such is depicted, as quote, public land, which is okay, but really, it should be depicted in a green because it should be more reflective of the fact that, that is all water there. Someone looking at this, independently of the actual zoning map is going to have no idea, that is actually, water. and
Water.
regular public, space. So
Yeah.
So I agree.
Yeah.
So do we want to make a suggestion? So water would be blue, of course. What do we want to do for residential color? What does most people see for that? Open space, we can make green, I guess.
Yeah.
I think the yellows are fine for residential space. I think since we have two separate, I guess, zoning areas, I think the yellow maybe makes sense.
Yeah, I think that, aligning it, somewhat with the zoning map would just maybe help for continuity, so residential A and B are in those two yellow tones. So that I'm not as worried about, but it's those large tracts of gray that
Right.
don't make any sense to me.
Right. They just look like voids.
Yeah, those are really the most egregious.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is.
And it should be noted that that land isn't protected, it's owned by the state.
Right.
They can
Right.
do whatever they want with it. Right now, they're protecting it to protect the water resource, but if they change their mind. it's
Right,
not
right.
protected.
So one question I have about public land. So, the town forest is, and it looks like Breakneck Hill also are all gray. So even though they are, open space / green space. So my question is, do you want to keep it just gray and public, or is this map supposed to be more representative of, our town resources?
I would think the latter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Because looking at this, the only open space I don't really see much open space.
No.
Well,
I
they're
agree.
little teeny,
What is that? Is that Chestnut Hill? No.
I don't know.
So
I'm
It's just a
geographically challenged.
Yeah, it's a terrible map.
Yeah.
Terrible.
We could
Yeah.
probably get a better map from our GIS ourselves.
So that's the map that I looked up as well, and it is very different. Like there are definitely some differences here. I think if we're gonna go with one over the other, the GIS is probably the better one. You can see the
Yeah.
water. It's just more intuitive, I think.
Yep. And I believe you can overlay through the GIS almost
You can.
everything that's listed here other than the tax exempt other.
Yep, you can do it all.
Yeah. So
this could be linked to that interactive map.
So
It's
Mimi,
GIS.
before are we going to stick to maps, or are we going to be able to go back? Because I had a couple comments on page 11 and 13, which was
Oh, okay.
data. Sorry, I didn't know if anybody else had data questions before we go to maps.
No worries. Page 11, you said?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was the one I mentioned before, that it says 10 or more units is 1.5%. And I don't see how that could be reflective with Madison Place based on the numbers that they provide. When I did the math based on, I think it was 3795 as units in town. And if you take 180 for Madison, it comes out to like 4.5%. So I'm kind of curious how they got the number they got based on, most of the data seems to be using a 2020 reference.
At least I think all these numbers are suspect. So we ought
Yeah.
to go through the whole thing carefully and check
Oh,
the
you got
numbers.
power. Yay.
Yeah, the only I think we just have to maybe Sarah can help us and go back to the MAPC and get the sources. My only thought is here, which is slightly worrying, is that I think this is the data that was on the posters that were put up when we did the vision forum. So not to say that we should include it if it's wrong, absolutely not. But so that's just one thought. But I think if Sarah can validate that with Ralph, that would be good.
Sure.
And then the other thing is when we did the MVP stakeholder workshop back in, I think it was January, maybe February, the consulting group that they used had this very comprehensive map book. Lisa,
Yep.
do you remember that? I think it would be great if we could see if we could use
I
some of
snagged a
that
copy.
data, because then if it's being used for the MVP, then at least we know that it's a kind of a common data set that we're using, and it seemed to be, I think it was potentially more accurate from what I'm hearing here.
I agree, Judith.
And I think the housing plan had these figures for housing type,
Yep, it did.
and they didn't match this.
On the same page, I know, page 11 here, the housing trends. Look at the trend. I don't, there's not enough available land within Southborough to
Yeah.
the housing by another 500 houses.
I was gonna say, I looked at, so on GIS that it shows like available lots. And I mean, there's maybe a handful of them, and there's really no other space for development. So I also thought that was weird.
Tom and Gina, though, there was a planning board study a number of years ago that came up with like 700 available lots.
Where?
And many of those are difficult to build on because the builders build on the easy ones first, certainly.
Right.
But the ZAC process that we referred to earlier actually had some density bonuses that allowed up to like 2,500 additional residential houses. Wow. Given the density proposals there, which I thought was crazy. But so it depends on how much you pack in, but you know, you could grow substantially. My theory is that we ought to have a policy that says we have a target for growth and zone accordingly, and recognize that in fact, when we build a residential unit, we lose money in terms of the cost of educating the kids that are likely to live in that house versus the taxes that they're likely to generate. So we got to be careful to balance the economics with housing opportunities. Now the mix in housing, I think, needs to change. But the total quantity ought to have some sort of limit on it, I think, or target area kind of thing.
I agree. Is adding more? I know we in the plan it states that we want to add some, housing diversity. But is it our goal to add a substantial amount of residential units to Southborough, or are we trying to make it more so of keep supply lower and then ultimately increasing demand for them?
Well,
with vision and upgrading our town and all of this.
Manipulate the market?
Yes, absolutely.
My thought is that we ought to have some sort of target area.
Okay.
And work on diversity within that mix.
Yep,
That
I agree, Sam.
I don't think we can afford to add another 1,000 or 2,000 residential units.
No, I don't think that's a great plan.
So Mimi, if the other question I have is on page 13, where it talked about the largest employers. And again, I don't have the plan in front of me, but I don't know why I wrote down largest, but I think it listed the top 3 employers being Harvard, St. Mark's, and there was another business right there, Vert USA. So I don't know how they came up with Harvard, other than if they did Harvard as like a medical school corporation, because there's really not a whole lot going on out at the medical school. And I doubt they have between 100 and 249 individuals employed there at this time.
That was a primate center, Lisa.
Right.
Yeah, it was at one
there's
point,
nobody there now.
Right. Yep.
It's
The book
just
So-
depository is
a
it.
book, yeah, and I think there's just a couple people looking at
Right.
the book.
Yeah, that's clearly wrong.
There are. So I was thinking like, you have RX Advance, which is having additional space added. They're renovating a building on Route 9 now. So again, I just questioned where that data came from. And, we had Olympus here as well. They had a ton of employees in Southborough. I don't have the number, but I just think that we need to double check that data as well.
Yeah, I think Olympus has actually left.
I think they're still here though, Tom, for another year. Didn't they move into a different building?
Yeah, because I think they also have a facility in Hopkinton on South Street. I know.
Okay. So
And they're building something right on the corner of 9 and 495. Isn't that an Olympus building?
yes.
9
In
and
West
4.
Grove?
So again, I just don't know where this data came from and it just
Yeah.
doesn't seem correct to me. Those were my major points on those. I didn't delve into more of the data. Those were just what jumped out at me.
So that going down 60, according to this is 57% of our expenses are education. Sam, didn't you mention it was higher?
Yeah, I think it's higher than that. Yeah,
I agree.
close to 70.
Yep.
Again, this should have been current. It's FY19.
Also, what could we expect to be grouped into this unclassified portion of expenses? What does that actually represent?
Good question.
I was looking at it with my husband. My husband's like, what is unclassified? Like, how are tax dollars not classified?
Well, I can see unclassified being like 0.5% or something, but 15%
Right.
is huge. I don't know what
That's
it's
what I said. I was
for.
like, this is significant.
That's the slush fund.
Yeah.
What's Mark
Discretionary
Zuckerberg
spending.
going on?
So if we're ready to move on, if there's nothing else on this, on page 15, where we talk about getting around town, if any of this text is kept, that very last paragraph, I'll let you get there.
The travel time?
It's on page 15, the very last paragraph. Yep, there you go, getting there. Where it says Southborough has a number of local walking trails, is connected to the regional Bay Circuit Trail. So I'd like to add there, and I can share this with the group, is Bay Circuit Trail, the Burroughs Loop Trail, Aqueduct Trail, and it's part of the landline network. So there's more to add here, and I recommend that all of these be listed with links to their websites also.
Perfect.
I told you I had a Fred Flintstone computer. It takes forever to move through this document here. So this is the master plan that Kat, you said should probably be at the beginning so we know what we're talking about.
I found it useful to refer to, and actually something really stuck out to me is the way that they have the themes from last time, transportation and circulation. I would like to change what we're calling accessibility, etc., to transportation and circulation. Those two words adequately highlight what we're trying to accomplish. And the word accessibility, as we had talked about before, has very specific meaning. Everything should have accessibility goals associated with each theme. But this specifically, I think we should rename our theme transportation and circulation.
Anything else for this?
So right here, I had a question at the very top here. These master plan themes should represent the, I thought we had 11, unless we consolidated to 10. Does anyone remember?
I think we consolidated, but go back to what we just talked about. On my document, they definitely cut and paste from other master plans. If you guys hover your mouse over, like say, hover over any one of the symbols there.
Oh, so there's links.
Oh yeah, it says the Middleton Master Plan Visioning 2006-2017.
Oops.
Middleton. Yeah, so it's definitely a cut and paste type of job with probably from other master plans.
Should we include the schools in the graphic here?
I think so.
Seems to me a good idea.
And I think we could update the graphic with perhaps images versus clip art type images. It's a more modern approach to that type of graphic.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should. I mean, we don't have natural resources as a section in our master plan, so I think if we're going to do that, we could. I like Kat's idea a lot of, talk about the general purpose of a master plan, but having the graphic reflect ours. And there were 11 objectives, Kat. It's the build out and population has been, I think, consolidated.
Thank you.
But I think one of the things we need to, this is one of my main comments, we need to try and do here is to kind of create the narrative around how we ended up with our 5 plan components that incorporated the 11 objectives. And that's, so what unfortunately Ralph has done here is he's just kind of put in, well, there was a document on objectives, and then the NPC committee worked on 5 major components. Well, we did that because it was a better, it was a more efficient way of managing all of the information and the objectives we were trying to come up with. But the 5 core areas that we ended up with incorporate the 11 objectives. So I think it's good to, I think we should definitely refer to those 11, but within the context of the overall 5. But that's not difficult to do. You can just frame it up like that, because then it helps lead into the actual objective and goal statement.
You need internal consistency between the various areas and the graphic and so forth, which again we can do, but it's frustrating that it's not so clear here.
But if you go to the next page, isn't that what we're referencing right now, specific now to Southborough?
Yes.
Yeah, and it should match the graphics. You go down.
Minor detail.
Yeah, minor. Right there. Right there.
Right. And these themes, for example, protection of open space and green initiatives, we don't have the word recreation listed in here at all. And so I think we would just use the official names of our themes that do incorporate the word recreation. And yeah, that was that.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't check all of them, but population build out targets, that wasn't, that's not a theme, right? I don't remember that being a.
It was one of the original 11.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Population build out targets. Yep. Just wasn't my theme.
My thing.
So it was unimportant, Kat, but it was there.
Trails wasn't very important for me, Kat, but
Oh, wow.
Oh,
territorial here. But you're exactly right. We need consistency between the titles so somebody going through can see clearly and quickly how the various pieces fit together.
Everyone has their own speciality, Sam.
That's right.
Scroll down a little bit to that picture, Southborough Master Plan, visiting open house. And To the bottom. See those two OK symbols in the middle?
Yeah, we've talked about
We
that.
got to get rid of that.
It's an official sign. It's is it sign language, or it's an official symbol for something ADA related. I looked it up once, but I understand your white power concern. It's being used in a negative way.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's another hearing hand signal to me something similar to that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Moving on. So these are all the forum presentations or boards.
I like including them in the report, just larger, so I can click on them and actually see what they're saying.
You know, it's funny, back in this, I'm just going to the housing one. You look at right there and, you know, you put all the dots and stuff, but that survey doesn't really reflect this. If you notice, the survey wanted a whole bunch of just say single family houses. Here you get the most from mixed use housing was one of the largest things.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. How do we, if we have updated data that's from a larger population, because this was from 35 people, then do we want to reference that so that there's a cross reference to it, so that this isn't standalone interpreted as this is what folks think if we have updated data? What's the recommended approach?
Yeah, because this one had what, like you said, 35-ish, and the other one had 187, 189, something like that, a little under 300 onto the survey.
298 or something. But it was, the survey was strange in that the questions came out that diversity of housing was not important, but then a lot of the comments called for mixed use.
So so in this context, is it reasonable to believe that maybe someone thought that mixed use housing meant something different? I feel like mixed use could be kind of like a catch-all term, and it's like, well, I don't want multifamily, townhouses don't seem important to me, so let me check the multi-use box. And maybe that's why the data is a little bit skewed.
You talking about from the survey from the in-house presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, the in-house one actually had pictures of mixed use type of things, very visual.
Yeah. So these mixed use buildings that are these the pictures right here that were used on the board? So it honestly, what it looks like is like these read more as storefronts. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that maybe people kind of registered it as, you know, we're going to have a storefront with like apartment buildings above it. That, you know what I mean? And they were, maybe that's what they were checking off, the storefront / housing. Maybe they want both, and that it's not just, you know, more housing or more of this type of housing that they want. They want genuine mixed use spaces.
Right.
I think this is a good example where we have to be really careful and compare and synthesize the information that's kind of out in the public domain right now, particularly around something like housing, because we've got the Vision Forum data, we've got our own MPC survey data, and then we've got the Housing Production Plan that had a survey as well, Tom, yeah?
Correct.
So I mean, just looking at the Vision Forum and our own survey, it's not, it doesn't give you the consistent message necessarily. And you're right, Gina, I think it's probably because because some of these definitions, people interpret them in different ways.
Right.
You know, the whole term diversity of housing, I know we had a lot of discussion about that in the early MPC meetings. You know, I had the same conversation with Keith, my other half, and he's like, well, I don't agree with that. And I'm like, well, that's because you've not understood what the definition is.
Right, exactly.
But I think that's one of the things that I'm most disappointed about with the MAPC, because they should have been on top of that. They should have been going, well, hang on a minute, we've got 2 surveys and they're different results. How would we explain that? But
Right.
also, how does this flow into the objectives and goals? So I think that's where we just have work to do to look at all of those information sets and say, well, what are the key messages that we want to pull out from this? And not to necessarily say, well, the survey data is wrong, because it's real data.
Right.
But we have to have a way to kind of explain why you might get different results from different things, and then decide as a committee, what is it that we actually want to flow through into our objectives and goals for housing.
For
I
sure.
think housing feels as though it's the one that's probably most challenging, because we've got all of those different sources, and there is a distinct, you know, we talked about that when we went through the survey the other week.
Jude, I think you're exactly right. I think it's our job to synthesize this. And I think that at least my read on this one is there's too much space given to the visioning thing and sort of as raw data, and not as much balancing as we need to do here. And I think the reason that was because that's all MAPC had. So they
Well,
collected
it's also
stuff.
their work. So, I mean, I think they're probably more familiar with it. You know,
so
you can just tell by the narrative around the forum and well, the forum in particular, but also the survey, is that they're much more familiar with that material. So they put more stuff in there around it.
yeah, basically, it was mostly the only thing they did. And so they led with what they
Mostly
had.
it was the only thing they did, yeah. But that's okay. Whoever takes this on board for 2030, we will provide them with a detailed lessons learned on our process.
Or consultants to use or not use.
Yeah, sounds a great thing for Gina to be on board for.
I'll be here.
Good. Maybe are we losing our quorum at 9?
9:30 for me.
9:30, okay.
9:30, I think. So what do we think about the space dedicated to the forum? Do we want to do anything about that?
I think it probably, just like the 2008, it needs to be summarized down, and just the key themes and points coming out of it, you know.
I agree.
Because some of this narrative makes it sound as though you had, you know, the equivalent of a town meeting at the forum, and we didn't have that many people on top of our committee members. So you just have to be, you know, someone will pick up on that if we're not careful. So
Yeah, agreed. And they do have the survey down below. Is this the biggest survey down at the bottom? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with almost 300. So they reference the survey. It's, I don't know, right around page 20, 21-ish.
24. Yeah.
Yep.
Now you get the survey itself in here. Again, if you notice, people are not going to go through the survey here. They're going to look at the nice, pretty pictures and see what people want.
Right.
Yeah. So do you think all of this is necessary? I think, Judith, you thought that it should be an appendix, or
Yes,
maybe a hyperlink or something.
that's a great idea.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. I
Yeah,
don't think
I like
that-
having an appendix. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, particularly, you know, the additional comments. I mean, again, I don't need to keep going on about it, but, you know, a number of these additional comments are not additional to the goals and objectives. We've already got them in there. So You know, it again, I think we just have to be inclusive, but make sure that we end up with a very robust document that reflects the work of the committee. Because right now it looks like, well, you know, all of these additional things you guys had never even thought of. Well, yeah, we did. They're part of the goals. Most of them are there, you know.
Yeah.
But again, it's to Sam's point, the skeleton is there. It's always easier to work with an existing document than it is to start with a blank piece of paper.
Yeah.
Anything else on the survey? So then the last section was just a cut and paste of our goal and objective statements.
So I noticed during that cut and paste under accessibility, which I'd like to change to transportation and circulation, they missed something that was on the original documentation on our shared drive. So they missed the whole pedestrian connectivity piece, cyclists, that was highlighted as one of the it was the pedestrian, cyclists, sidewalks, trails, Route 9, crossing causeway. However, we want to shorten that to be reflected as a goal that was not included in this document.
And what section was that under, Kat?
It's accessibility and connectivity on page 30.
Oh, okay.
And I know this is nitpicking, but it's, you reference EMC/Dell. It's just Dell Technologies. That's the corporate name now.
So how do we want to handle this? Do we want this presented as it is in the cut and paste version
Well,
with the excluded pieces added back in?
so this whole section is going to be what the report is, right? This is going to be the beginning. So I wonder if what's included in the visioning is more of a high level, you know, topic areas, and then each section dives into the details. So does it need to be repeated multiple times in the document? Not necessarily. So in the visioning, it would just be high level, and then you break out into each section as the 2008 plan did.
Right, that would be my opinion, that the visioning should, as I said before, be the story and where we're headed, and be easier to read, not
Yeah.
all this minutia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry, just to come back on that then. So, are we looking to have, I'm kind of almost like picking up on Sam's point about an executive summary that says, here's what we've done, here's how we did it briefly, and here's the kind of key highlights. with the vision goals. Let's say there's, I don't know, 50 vision goals. And then the rest of this material gets separated into sections in the same way as it was in the 2008 plan. So the data around from the vision survey, from the vision forum and the survey and the data sets that we talked about earlier just get reallocated into sections within the report.
That makes sense.
I mean, I think it would be an awful lot easier to try and tell the narrative for each of the main theme areas if we did it that way.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Mhm.
me too.
Yeah, I agree.
At least
Sarah, what do
maybe-
you think? I know you've done some of this work before. Do you think that would make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense to me. Absolutely.
Maybe a next step is sort of a mock-up of how the structure would look, sort of taking this and reorganizing a little bit without much content in it, but say, here's how the storyline develops in terms of if you have an executive summary, here's what the sections might look like, et cetera. If we've got an overall view, I mean, I'm still struggling getting my head around sort of what the bones of it look like, and then you can add the flesh later if it makes a good flow in terms of the logic of it.
Yeah. It's what
Yeah.
I would have called a storyboard.
Yeah.
Where we did
Right. I think
So, I mean, can I just bring something up? Again, I know that was decided a long time ago. I don't know if it makes sense at this point. Is it reasonable to maybe just go back and create a whole new document? It really sounds like whatever's here is just not working for us. I think this is a good base, but maybe we transpose, instead of editing a document, we transpose what we want from this one in terms of structure onto a new one. Because it sounds like things are just going to get really messy of what's going to be taken out. What are we going to rearrange? What are we going to rewrite? What are we going to move here, there, and everywhere? Would it make sense to, at this point, start with a new document?
Yep.
Yeah, Gina, that's where I was headed with.
Oh, sorry.
You just said storyboard, so you got a structure.
Right.
It may loosely follow some of this, but we make what we think makes sense, and then we'll cut and paste pieces of this or develop new stuff as appropriate. But I think what's bothering me is this just doesn't flow much as a story. If I'm trying to sell something to somebody,
Right.
explain, here's what we want to do out of this. This doesn't do much for me.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think taking it back to, just a blank document and creating, what we know we want as a foundation, and then pulling in the information that's relevant to that foundation, from the existing document, from other existing documents. I think that's the best way to go. I agree.
I don't want to be too pessimistic. I actually am fairly optimistic. I think we got a lot of good raw material here and other places.
Yep.
We just need to
Yeah.
assemble it a little better.
Yes, I agree.
Can I ask a bigger question? Like so we started a little bit over a year ago. What do we think our next year looks like, and when we'll pull, and this isn't a criticism, I'm just curious what our timeline is for next steps.
I guess I'd hope that we'd actually be writing the final version of it, this summer here, basically, which is, we're not too far off of that, I think.
Yep.
And so my sort of high level view is that we would have something by, spring town meeting of 2021 to present to town meeting. Essentially, I think that's a fairly realistic expectation.
That seems reasonable.
Mhm.
Yeah, otherwise it's hard to keep calling it the 2020 master plan.
Well, wait a minute now. We've done worse. Mimi, do you have any different view of timing on it?
No, I agree with you, Sam. I think that that's reasonable. You know, a big part of it is this, once we get this visioning, the other, you know, the chapters of the rest of the plan will go much faster.
Right.
Right. And in fact, if we can do that, that's faster than the 2008 plan, which started in 2004 or 5, as I recall. So we're improving.
Better.
Yeah.
Didn't quite feel like it, but we are.
Okay, so how do we want to handle the next step? Who's going to be the storyboard author?
I think, I mean, as we talked, I think from an open meeting law standpoint, the structure, I think that makes sense is to appoint someone, some individual to coordinate that. And then that person has flexibility to call on other resources as may be appropriate, but the focus is on one individual as the appointee to drive the process.
Okay.
I'm
I mean,
happy.
I'm going to put my hand up here because I've said in the last couple of meetings, I'm happy to do that. I mean, that was what I did for 30 years. So.
Good. And if you hadn't volunteered,
Right,
I was gonna
business
remind you
plan.
that you said that, Judith.
Oh, you were, Sam. Well, you know, always best to go on the offensive because then you know.
Be careful what you say.
But I would want to co-opt Sarah for
Yes,
sure because she's
absolutely.
also volunteered and she's done this before, right?
Happy to help.
Okay. Does that need to be a vote to appoint Judith to come
Probably.
up with a storyboard?
It'd be useful to be official, yeah.
Mhm.
So I guess I'll move that we appoint Judith to coordinate the next step in terms of story development here.
I'll second.
That's very quick.
I know.
It's the caffeine.
Okay, so we have to take a roll call vote. Latrell, yes. Markelier,
Yes.
McKee,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes, I guess.
Ivers,
Yes.
Lazarmitsky,
Yes. Very good.
Ratio.
Yes.
And Will, I don't think that you've been appointed yet, so I don't think you haven't been appointed by the planning board, so. can't
But you
vote
will
yet.
be.
Yeah. All right. So the next thing. So are we ready to move on from the visioning document? So is it too aggressive to have something for the next meeting, Judith?
Remind me when that is? 3 weeks? Did we
I think
put one
it's
in?
the 29th, right?
Yeah.
I thought something on my calendar for the 29th. Did I see it?
Oh, yeah, I think
Is
that's
there
very
a place where meeting dates are listed or are they just announced at the previous one?
They're on our website, on the master plan committee
They are.
website through the planning board.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I think I would say that's very doable. Storyboard and, you know, whatever else we can come up with.
So I have August 26th as the next meeting date. Does someone have something?
I have July 29th on my calendar. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, I don't.
Yep.
Yeah, the 29th is a Wednesday. 26th is a Sunday.
Oh, is it? Whoops. All right.
No meeting conflicts on that day.
So July 29th. And do we like mornings? We had been doing 7:30 at night.
Actually, so I have it at 7:30 p.m. and it's not about me, but the Trails Committee has already booked
It's about you.
7:30 a.m. and we're inviting DCR to join us. So I'm hoping we can keep that time frame. Thank you very much.
For 7:30 p.m.?
AM. Yeah, if we could keep PM, that would be helpful.
Okay,
Works for me.
all right. And then we have,
I'm guessing we're not going to be back in person by then, Sam, Lisa.
Hard to know, maybe not, but things are opening up.
Yeah.
I guess one question I would have is personal comfort. Like if things open up, but people aren't comfortable, are there accommodations that will be made for remote participation for some folks, initially at least, while we kind of get used to what life is going to be like? We don't have the answer for that, but that's one of my questions is like, how are
I
they
would
going
expect so.
to,
We
you know,
should.
yeah.
I just read an update that I got from working at the town hall from Charlie Baker that I believe for quite a while, even if we open up, there is going to be a requirement that remote options are offered for everybody.
Yeah.
yeah, I would think so.
Thank you.
All right, next is minutes.
Kat, Mimi, if I could just add quickly for Catherine, that I will tell you, I've had a lot of positive comments, Sam, and I'm sure you have as well, that typically committees that aren't recorded are now recorded. So people are able to attend that may not have been able to attend the meetings before. So I personally would hope some level of this is going to continue. I think it's great.
It's more transparency than ever before. If you really want to
Yes.
do how it's helping people really stay informed. Being able to
Yep.
watch recording at your leisure or watch it while you're walking or listen to it while you're walking it's brilliant.
No,
Mhm.
I agree. And I hope we're going to have some level of this going forward.
Yeah.
And
I've
it's
never had so much quorum in my whole time as committee chair.
much easier to get quorums, I've noticed.
Maybe not this committee, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, oh yeah?
we struggle.
We're going to do it now, though.
Yeah. Well, we have 3 new people, right?
Yeah.
Engaged.
And wasn't it Kate was going to start bringing around cocktails at some point?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Isn't she going to like leave them on people's doorstep?
Delivered by DoorDash.
What
Right, and we
happened?
could all send out an email with like a recipe for a cocktail and we have to make it in our own homes and we'll all have them on camera together. We'll have a different one every meeting.
In our coffee cups, you see.
Yes, exactly. 7:30 a.m. What a way to start the day.
Exciting start to the day. Master plan.
So do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from June 3rd, was it?
No, we didn't. I thought we didn't have quorum.
That was on June 19th.
Okay.
I
So
move we
moved.
approve them. Yeah. Thank you. I'll second.
Wait, who seconded?
Kat.
I thought you motioned, Kat, no?
Oh,
I moved.
Sam motioned better. So I let Sam.
Sorry. Thank you, guys.
Who seconded then?
Cat did.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
And now that we have that all cleared up, Latrell, yes. Markelier,
Yes.
McKee,
Yes.
Lazaritsky,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Stivers,
Yes.
Braccio.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
Actually, sorry, just remind me, is Gina able to approve them even though she wasn't at the meeting?
She is. As
Yeah,
long as she's
probably.
read them, she can approve them.
Oh, okay, great. I always get confused on that.
Yeah, you don't have to be there.
I got a request for you, Mimi. You seem to be still using my Yahoo address versus my town email.
Oh, I can change it.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone?
No?
Nope.
What's everyone doing for the 4th? Anything exciting?
Going to the bars, hanging out with.
Huge party at my house.
Oh,
The masked ball.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. No, I think we're just having, my mom over. She's kind of been in quarantine with us more or less for
cool.
the last couple of weeks. So
We're going to New Hampshire.
Oh, good.
I'm actually already, I didn't tell you guys, but I think I told you last week I was going. I'm actually in Boise, Idaho right now.
Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, I flew in last night.
What are you in Idaho for?
Well, I used to live here.
Oh, really?
And I still have a lot of friends out here, although we're not going to see most of them. I have a very good girlfriend here that I've come to stay with. I haven't seen her for a year. So
I've always wanted to go to Idaho. I just feel like the natural beauty is amazing.
it's beautiful. You should check out the weather on the Yahoo weather app. It's 10 days of blue sky, sunshine, and temperature in the 80s.
Well, better than we've had here.
So yeah, but it was
Ruth always takes lots of
interesting.
pictures. She can do a travel log at our next meeting.
Yeah, it was interesting traveling. You know, Logan Airport, pretty deserted.
Crowded plane.
What was the flight like for population?
It was full but but felt okay. I changed from American to Southwest because Southwest keeps the middle seat open.
Yeah.
Um,
Blue does too.
everybody in masks. Very few people up and down in the aisles. You know, they'd obviously cross their legs very tightly. And the first flight was it's a 4-hour flight to Denver, and then Denver 2 hours onto Boise. Denver airport was busier than I thought it was going to be, you know, not everyone wearing masks, but you know, generally people I think trying to be very respectful of each other. Logan was brilliant. I mean, Logan Airport had hand sanitizers on every visible wall. So yeah, it was, you know, the new world.
New experience.
So Judith, I fly to Michigan on Saturday, and literally there's 5 people on my plane.
No way.
Wow.
It is like the best. I really, and coming home, I think we have 6. So yeah, I'm like feeling like I got my own chartered plane, and
Excellent.
you know.
Yeah.
Is the cockpit full, Lisa? That's the question.
Well, I certainly hope so, Sam. You know, I have many specialties, but flying a plane is not one of them.
Oh, no.
Funny.
Woman of many talents.
All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
All right. Judith gets that one.
That was 22 people.
And a second?
I'll second.
Latrell, yes.
Marco,
Montpelier. McKee,
Yes.
Lazarnitsky,
Yes.
Watson,
F.
Stivers,
Yes.
Braccio.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Happy
Yes,
Thank
4th.
you, Mimi.
Hopefully I get to meet you in person someday.
Thank you, Gina. So
Happy
great
4th.
to have you on board.
Thank you.
And
Very
you too,
excited.
Will.
Thank
Welcome
you.
to Will
Very
as well.
excited to be here.